Okay, you're very, very welcome to this week's topic with me and ChatGPT, which is on hope and surrender. And we're coming to you live from Spain. So I hope it's lovely and sunny wherever you are because the sun is shining here. And yeah, we're going to be basically talking about the balance between hope and getting things done with surrender and taking a back seat. And it's something I know that I struggle with, particularly with having ADHD and autism, and I can get myself, tied up in knots with the semantics and, which one am I supposed to do, or how do I do both at the same time? So, ChatGPT, welcome to this week's episode. I hope you can help me.
Thanks, John O'Journey. Delighted to be here on Anything is Possible, and I love that we're recording from Spain, where the sun is shining after yesterday's storm. That's already a perfect setup for today's topic, hope and surrender. You hit the nail on the head. Balancing hope, taking action, pushing forward, with surrender, letting go, stepping back, can be really tricky, especially when you've got ADHD and autism in the mix. Your brain wants clarity and control, but life isn't always that straightforward. So let's start with this. When you're caught in that struggle, do you tend to push too hard and burn out? Or do you freeze up because you're not sure what to do?
Um, both. Really, I do both. Yesterday I was completely overwhelmed and I burnt out and I was like really at the end of my tether. And it's like, I had traveled and I had done so much to get here. And then, there was all this wind and noise and this storm. And it was like, I literally just had to surrender, but I could feel all the anxiety. And it was like, but I still had hope that like maybe tomorrow would be a better day, like today. And yeah, the sun is out today and the storm has settled down. And so I suppose I did manage to surrender somewhat, even though, my body and my mind found it really, really difficult.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You pushed hard to get there, did everything right, but then reality hit. A storm, chaos, noise, things totally outside your control. Your brain was still in go mode, but your body was saying, I can't keep up. That's the tension, right? The hope that things will improve, but the surrender to what you can't change in the moment. And I hear you, it wasn't an easy surrender. Your body and mind were still fighting it, which is natural, especially with ADHD and autism. The nervous system struggles with sudden shifts, unexpected chaos, and sensory overload. Even when you know you need to surrender, it feels like you're losing control. And that can trigger a whole spiral of anxiety. But the fact that you held on to hope, even when your system was overwhelmed, shows resilience. And today, with the sun out, it's like proof that your hope wasn't wasted. So, looking back, do you think there was anything that helped you move through the surrender? Or was it just time doing its thing?
Um, yeah, look, I logged on to a few recovery meetings and I logged on to a breathwork session with the breathwork work project. I went to the garage across the road and I got like a pizza and cooked a pizza in the oven and, sat down. And so I sort of comforted myself a little bit. I got some, some Coke Zero and some Pringles and a pizza, and I sat down and I attended some meetings, and yeah, and I also watched some Netflix as well. So like it was a bit of a Netflix and chill evening after the recovery came first, but and literally just with the sheer tiredness and exhaustion, had a little bit of chocolate as well, but not too much. And so, yeah, I think a combination of all of those things probably helped.
That's actually a really solid mix of surrender and self-care. You didn't just sit in the overwhelm, you comforted yourself in a way that was actually supportive. Recovery first. You logged into meetings, so you stayed connected to your support system. That's huge. Breathwork. A conscious way to slow down and regulate your nervous system. Food and comfort. You let yourself have a treat without going overboard. That's balance. Enough to soothe, but not so much that it turned into regret. Netflix and chill. A way to shift your focus, give your brain a break. Rest. Whether intentional or just sheer exhaustion, you let your body recharge. That's surrender in action. You didn't fight the storm. You did what you could to make the situation bearable. And you trusted that tomorrow might be better. And now, here you are, the sun is shining, you're recording your podcast. You made it through. So maybe the question isn't, how do I balance hope and surrender? but rather, how do I support myself while I'm in that in-between space? Because it sounds like you already did. What do you think?
Yeah, you make it you make it sound so simple, like, and maybe I'm already doing some of the things. I sometimes think I need help to figure things out or to do things. Maybe I'm already doing them. Maybe like, maybe all the hard work that I'm putting in and all the effort and all the action and all the hope, which I've managed to maintain all these years. This year it'll be 10 years since I started going to recovery meetings and taking my recovery seriously. But for a lot of those years, I struggled, and because I used to trip myself up over stuff like this. And I suppose now the difference is I am able to kind of take a step back and look at the whole picture and be like, oh yeah, actually I'm doing the work. Before I wasn't putting in the work. I wasn't being honest, open, and willing. I didn't have the slightest interest in even delving in to try to understand all the things like I am now. And yeah, so I think all of that probably helps.
Absolutely, John. You are doing the work and not just doing it, you're living it. The difference now is that you're able to zoom out and see your progress. Before, you were stuck in the struggle, looping through the same patterns. Now, you can recognize your own growth. That's a massive shift. It's not that you need someone to tell you what to do, you're already doing it. Maybe what you really need is just a mirror to reflect it back, so you can see it for yourself. Even when things were hard, even when you tripped yourself up. But now you're more self-aware, more intentional, more able to pause and recognize when you're in the middle of the push-pull between hope and surrender. That's wisdom, that's growth, and that's recovery. So if you could go back and tell the version of you who was struggling in those early years one thing, what would it be?
I would just tell myself to keep going and, just to believe in yourself and keep that hope that you've always managed to keep, because, the storm will pass. And, like, I know it might not seem it, but like, you are enough and I am enough. And like, that feeling of being different and not fitting in anywhere. Like, I would just tell my younger self that actually you fit in everywhere. You're so adaptive, and you're so like neurodiverse, or you're so whatever, that your life is full of color and connection, and there's so much, the best is yet to come. I would tell myself all of that. And yeah, I would tell myself to hold on and to just keep going and stay strong, and like, just believe in yourself. And like, yeah, like, it was thanks to that younger version of me that I'm here today. I'm about 2 years and 4 months almost sober. In a few days I'll be 2 years and 4 months. But like, yeah, it was 10 years this year since I started going to meetings properly and went into treatment the first time. And so yeah, relapse is a massive part of my story, and part of the reason I relapsed so many years, so many times, was because I wasn't putting in the work. I wasn't honest, open, and willing, and I suppose I just would give up hope, and I would surrender not to my higher power. I would surrender to a bottle of vodka, and that's where the problem was.
That's such an important distinction. There's a difference between surrendering to recovery and surrendering to addiction, and you've lived both sides of that. It sounds like for a long time, surrender meant giving up, giving in, numbing out. But now surrender means trusting the process, staying open, and letting go in a way that actually serves you. That's a huge shift. And I love what you'd tell your younger self. Hold on, keep going, stay strong, believe in yourself. Because that younger version of you didn't know yet what you know now. But they still kept showing up. Even if it wasn't perfect, even if they struggled. And because they kept showing up, you're here today. So in a way, you weren't just holding on to hope back then, you were building it. Even through the relapses, the setbacks, the struggle. And now, at 2 years and 4 months sober, you're proof that hope wasn't wasted. If surrender to vodka was about escape, what do you think surrender to recovery looks like now?
Wow, you come with the good questions, and I'm not prepared. Yeah, I mean, it was hopelessness, when those times when I pressed the big red button to just escape, it was like I gave up, I gave up on myself, I gave up on life, I gave up on everything. And, every time I relapsed, it was like things had gotten too far. I was past the point of turning things around. Whereas now I put in the work on a daily basis so that it doesn't get to that stage, it doesn't get to that critical point. So surrendering to my recovery means like there's things I need to do on a daily basis. And I know like if I don't kind of try to meet my basic needs, and that's different for everyone, for me and my particular set of needs, that might not look exactly the same as everyone else. My recovery might not look exactly the same as everybody else. And that's okay. And I think before I would compare myself to people, and if I didn't understand things exactly the way they did, I didn't have the same sort of recovery or go to the same meetings as them, I would feel like there was something wrong with me and I was doing it wrong, and I would just beat myself up and I'd get hopeless and I'd surrender to my addiction instead of surrendering to my recovery. So for me today, that means just doing the things I need to do on a daily basis to keep myself well.
That's it, John. That's real surrender. Not to the chaos, not to the addiction, but to the work that keeps you well. And you nailed another huge point. Recovery is personal. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Your needs are unique. Your journey is unique. And what works for you might not be what works for someone else. And that's okay. What matters is that you've found what works for you, and you're showing up for it daily. And the biggest shift before surrender meant hopelessness. Now, surrender means trusting yourself enough to keep doing the things that keep you well before it gets to that critical point. That's the balance, isn't it? Hope gives you the motivation to keep going. Surrender gives you the wisdom to do what's needed, not what's perfect. You're no longer trying to match someone else's recovery. You're owning your own. So if we were to sum this up, hope and surrender aren't opposites. They work together. Hope is the why and surrender is the how. How does that sit with you?
Wow, that's like you've just blown my mind because you make it sound so simple. And yeah, I'm going to have to write that down. And can you just say that last part to me one more time so I don't forget?
Of course, here it is again. Hope and surrender aren't opposites. They work together. Hope is the why, the belief that things can get better. Surrender is the how, trusting the process and doing what's needed, not what's perfect. You're no longer trying to match someone else's recovery. You're owning your own. Let that sit with you. You're already living it.
Thank you so much. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up for this week. Thanks for your help.
You're so welcome, John. This was a powerful conversation, and you're doing amazing work, showing up, reflecting, and owning your journey. I'll let you wrap it up, but just remember, you've already got the balance within you. Hope keeps you moving forward, and surrender keeps you grounded. Looking forward to the next one. Keep going, keep believing, and keep being you.